I really appreciate you taking the time to come in and talk to us about everything that's going on. So what is the Justice League NYC?
So Justice League it's a task force founded in 2013. I work for Harry Belafonte. I run his organization called the Gathering for Justice. And in 2000, after the election of Mayor de Blasio, we felt like since we had put our energy in getting him elected, it was an opportunity for us to come together, my generation, to build collective power, right? Folks from like the artist community, criminal justice advocates. And so we came together and we built Justice League. Our first task was producing a 3-day solutions conference. And after that, we kind of built a community. And after the non-indictment of Officer Daniel Pantaleo of the killing of Eric Garner, we took to the streets and created a set of 10 demands and have been kind of working on holding the police accountable, right? Police reform, criminal justice, and so we do a couple of things.
Does it frustrate you that you see these things happen and literally you've been trying to make a change with, you know, everybody who's part of the Justice League and other people who support it? Does it get frustrating for you?
I think it is frustrating for all of us in the community, right? Just in general, there have been so many lives lost at the hands of police. Anthony Bias, right? That was killed 20 years ago. Like, people have been doing this work for a long time. There have been organizations committed to police reform for decades. And what's sad to me is the response from our mayor, our response from Commissioner Bratton, the people that are supposed to be in leadership really trying, you know, they're not fixing the issue, right? There's no real way in which they are addressing our concerns as community members, as activists, as organizers, as advocacy experts, whatever it is, they're not addressing the issue. They're creating more tension between community and the police.
So when someone's looking at Carmen, how do we explain what your role is within Justice League NYC?
So I'm the co-founder of Justice League, and I'm also the executive director of the Gathering, and I've been doing this work, criminal justice reform, for 20 years. So started as a youth advocate, as a young person, really invested in young people and creating detention alternatives, and ultimately went into kind of the violence prevention world and organizing inside prisons, working with the men, and came to Mr. Belafonte in 2005 after the arrest of a 5-year-old girl by the name of Jaisha Scott. And so he brought us all together just to kind of begin to do motto exchanges, right? To really speak about what are the solutions. So there's a lane for all of us, right? So for me, I see there being progress, right? In the terms of our president going into a jail and criminal justice reform. What I don't see progress in is accountability of police officers and police departments.
So what is the game plan? What do you feel needs to happen so that police officers are accountable for these type of tragic situations?
First of all, I think there are a lot of policies. There's the Right to Know Act that just got shut down by the city council, and that's a policy that Community United for Reform are pushing, and a lot of organizations are pushing. We really need to start with collecting the data, creating a plan on system accountability. Everybody has a role, right? So the artists are saying, what do we do? Well, use your platform to elevate the organizations that are working in this field, and don't create another organization. Support us, right? Because a lot of us are struggling. Other advocates are coming together, trying to figure out what the game plan is, what is an agenda that we're gonna be pushing forward after the election, right? What's the agenda right now? And so I think it's a multi-pronged approach, right? We need protesters to continue to put political pressure and be on the streets. We need advocacy experts to keep on pushing the policies that lead to police reform. We need individuals to talk about this issue and to support our work and you know, find a way to get involved.
So the right to know that just this was a policy that was being proposed that just got shut down. Now, what was this policy and who was?
The policy was the right to, you know, to know who the police officer is, like you being stopped as a civilian, the right to know, you know, and I should probably look at it so I won't mess it up. But, you know, certainly I think there are other policies as well, but there are a lot of advocates right now that are working on these simple things, right? These things that our elected officials could get on board with. but our elected officials are so disconnected from community, with the exception of a few that we work with consistently.
How do we get policies implemented? Like, if you could break this down for people as simple as possible, because people do want to get active, right? People want to help out. They want to stop this, but they really just don't know where to go and how to do it to be effective.
Right.
What should they do?
So in regards to the policies, I think, again, different groups have different policies that they're pushing. Some of our policy priorities are raise the age. It's New York and North Carolina are the two states that try 16-year-olds automatically as adults. We've seen it with Khalif Browder, who was incarcerated allegedly for stealing a backpack, and did 3 years and then was let go. But during that time of his incarceration at Rikers, he was susceptible to violence, to rape, to so much abuse, and couldn't make bail, couldn't make a $200 to $500 bail. So I think for us, it's advocating for policies, going to Albany, right? Connecting with our elected officials. We have, Twitter Tuesday, right, where we're pushing the Juvenile Justice Delinquency Prevention Act, which is an act that provides alternatives to young people and positive alternatives, and investing back in our community. So we have petitions, right? So people could go on Twitter, follow us on Twitter at NYC Justice League, and click a petition or call a senator. Tom Cotton is the person who's, Senator Tom Cotton is the one that's like opposing it. So flood his offices with calls and saying
Why is he opposing it?
Because that's a really great question. But because some people are on this public safety kick that, if we create alternatives and we don't put people in jail, then it's a public safety issue, right? So people don't understand that a lot of the young people or the individuals that are locked up are in there for nonviolent crimes, right? For drug use, mental health issues. We shouldn't be incarcerating people because they're smoking weed for a small dime, right? We should create something that's a positive alternative that will lead them to a different path, but we don't. We use incarceration as a way to control communities, as a way to be punitive in communities, but we obviously know it's Black and Latinos that are flooding our prisons, right? So we have to create something different. And so it starts with the policies. And when you talk about protests, some people don't want to protest. I never saw myself as a protester. I'm an organizer, right? I organize communities. I train activists. I work on criminal justice reform from the policy level to, working in detention centers, providing programming. So I never saw myself as a protester, but what I did feel when I was out there in the streets was a unity, right? There was so much pain a couple days ago that all of us felt. And so when you're out in the streets, bringing awareness, right? It's when you're able to shut down the streets, you have people paying attention. People don't want to be uncomfortable. So we have to make people feel uncomfortable because there are people that are constantly dying. We talk about Philando Castile and Alton Sterling, but there is 3 other deaths on 4th of July. There was Antonio Nunez out of San Jose. There was Pedro Villanueva out of Southern California. 2 Latino kids that were killed at the hands of police, as well as there was Delron Small out of Brooklyn, right? So there are so many individuals that we haven't named yet who have been killed at the hands of police. And what we also say is like it's going to take all those strategies that you talked about, not just protests, but also pushing policies, right? Understanding what policies hold police accountable, also having people invest in the work, right? And also having individuals elevate our platforms. There are currently 12 police officers here in New York that are called the NYPD 12, that are the whistleblowers that are talking about the racist quota system that Commissioner Bratton says does not exist in our city, right? So for instance, they are being told to stand and hide in a hole so that they could then bust Black and brown kids, specifically Black men, right? And so when you know, you're hearing this from a police officer and they're saying, no, there's no bias, you know, we're not racially profiling. But then you have police officers that are currently working in law enforcement saying, my sergeant told me to do that. I mean, we have to change that culture, right? So that's a whole different thing. You know, we talk about, is it training officers, right? Doing sensitivity trainings, cultural sensitivity trainings.
Right.
Are we gonna, how do we reform the police departments? Well, you know, another conversation that is currently happening is like not investing in the police departments. You know, we incentivize failing systems, right?
Right.
We give money to systems that are failing. So if your police department is not practicing policies, department policies that are about really protecting the people, then you shouldn't be receiving money from the federal government.
How do we stop that? Because I don't think it's going to be willing at this point.
Right. And you know, I could just say, like, for New York, I think organizations are doing that, right? They're going and they're looking at the training. They're giving recommendations, but the police department needs to be open to that. And they're not open to that. I come from Santa Cruz County, where our leadership in the probation department was open to reform, speaking to different stakeholders from community-based organizations, mental health, law enforcement, schools, all these individuals, bringing them together to do system accountability, right? So, but then you have Salinas, which is a neighboring county of Santa Cruz, that is using punitive practices. So how is it that Santa Cruz is number one in the nation for restorative justice, yet the neighboring county is not? And it's because we don't have anything on a federal level on system accountability. And I think a lot of us that are doing this work in criminal justice reform, that are out there in the streets, or we really need to come together to begin to identify what system accountability on a police department actually looks like for a federal level. But I know organizations are currently doing that. You know, they're talking about trainings. They're talking about, well, I think we as community members who are experts in our field should actually be training some of these police officers as to how to build bridges versus feeling as though there's a us versus them. But again, it's the leadership, right? Commissioner Bratton creates this culture that it's us versus them.
If you could look at this whole situation, right? Let's say there's a map right now, and Carmen, we need direction in what to do next. What would you say is a next step? How do we go about this?
So,
not just in New York.
Right, not just in New York. I think something that's kind of brewing right now is that if we learn from the past, right, from the Chicano movement, the United Farm Workers movement, the American Indian movement, the Black Liberation movement, the civil rights, all those different movements, is that they did something very radical, and that was boycotting, right? The reason the United Farm Workers were so successful is because they had a national boycott on grapes so that they could change the conditions of the working people in the fields. And so a lot of groups right now, particularly Justice League, with my partners like Tamika Mallory and my son, we're coming together and we're saying we need to figure out how we boycott the system, right? We need to divest our dollars from McDonald's, from places like Verizon, because those are the people, those are the corporations that are profiting from the prison industrial complex, right?
Wow.
And so we're wanting to give people, again, you're saying the little steps, right? So we need to connect with the organizations that are working on policy changes, like, you know, the Gathering for Justice, Justice Committee that's been working on these different acts. Look them up, right? Look them up, go to their websites, check out the policies that they're pushing. But also, we are putting something out which is called No Equality, No Economy, right? And it's a 7-day boycott on different corporations that, like Walmart. Again, I'm telling you, there's companies that are investing directly and are in bed with our legislators, right? So some of these companies pay our legislators to then open up their state for private prisons. And so what ends up happening, our people are in there, right? Our people, our Black and brown people, end up becoming the people that are filling these prisons. And they're the ones that are making Victoria's Secrets, right? They're making coffee cups for different coffee institutions, and we're using cheap labor, which is slave labor at the end of the day, right? And so we're asking our folks, boycott, right? If you could walk to work, do that, right? But we are putting this out. It's going to be at noequalitynoeconomy.com. It's a collective of us that are doing this.
This is great. This is good knowledge, because really you see so many things on the internet, right? Social media, you don't know what to believe. There's different people who are, it could spew hate. Right. If you don't know the right things, if you don't know the right information, you might start boycotting something that has nothing to do with it, and you're hurting, good businesses that might be doing good amongst the community. So how do we accurately find that kind of information, and piece it all together?
So, and I think we have to do better in piecing things together, right? And that's
Right.
what we're trying to do. We're
Got
trying
it.
to give people direction. We're saying, learn about history, learn about the different movements from the past, the different tactics. All organizations and people didn't get along back in the day, and so it's nothing new. But there's a place and a lane for everybody, right? So if you're a protester, go out into the streets.
Right.
Yesterday we were in the Bronx for Bronx Unity,
Right.
and a lot of people say, well, those of you who are working on police brutality, why are you guys getting upset about the fact that a police officer kills a civilian, but you're not upset when a civilian kills another civilian? Well, it's not mutually exclusive, because at the gathering we work on both, right? We work on violence prevention. There are organizations like Erica Ford's Life Camp that is out there in the streets, Shanduke, that are actually working to stop bullets, right?
Right.
But we had a unity march yesterday in the Bronx, which was so amazing, because you didn't have your, protester on the streets. You had community members united, talking about like a Bronx united will never be defeated. So creating entry points for people, directing them to organizations like the Gathering for Justice, Justice League, the Justice Committee, different orgs that are doing this work, as well as the website noequalitynoeconomy.com.
Now, is that currently active?
It is. I believe we're just we're putting it all together. We're doing a peace walk with Gwen Carr on Saturday in Brooklyn. She's doing it for the second year anniversary of the death of her son, Eric Garner. And so we're also asking folks to come and join her. These are mothers that are leading the charge for reform in our communities as well. So come to Brooklyn. It's a peace walk with Gwen Carr. But after that, we're putting the 7 days out. And so it should be active. If it's not, I'll make sure that I push our people to put it up for folks. But that's an entry point for people to get involved. And again, like, support the work that we're doing. Foundations aren't knocking on our doors. People don't want to challenge the status quo, right? So organizations like myself, people like myself, what we have to do is come together and build collective power and use our own resources to do so.
Which is a lot of work.
It is.
It's a lot of work. Some people who might watch this, they might think, oh, okay, you're against police officers. And that's not the case at all.
That's not.
Because we want police officers to protect our communities the right way. We want to feel that what we've been told, that police officers are here to protect us, is actually happening.
Right.
And there are good police
and
officers
there are.
out
That's
there.
why, that's why I was saying, and I was talking about the NYPD 12, like Edwin. He talks about how he went into law enforcement because he wanted to give back to his community.
It's beautiful.
He wanted to help
Right.
his people. And a lot of officers are really great individuals. A lot of them are our cousins, right? Like,
Right.
we're not anti-police. We are anti-police brutality, right? We want to be able to hold them accountable the way in which Juan, who kills, Carlos, or Ray, who kills John, is held accountable, right? They will go to prison for killing somebody. So if we see daily, right, a man being held down and put in a chokehold and saying, I can't breathe 11 times, we want that officer to be fired, right? And we want him to go through, to be indicted, so that he can actually face charges like another person who would have done the same thing.
Exactly. And I think that's so important, because I think, in my opinion, after Alton Sterling and Philando Castile's murders, the Dallas situation happened with the police officers losing their lives. And I feel all of a sudden there's this complete divide. It's either you're on the police officer side or you're with the people's side. And it's like, this is a problem.
We could mourn both, right?
We could mourn both.
Yes,
Absolutely.
We could mourn, because we are not about violence, right? We are, whether it's at the hands, like, we need to eliminate. I work for Mr. Harry Belafonte, and he talks about, there should just not be guns, period, right? We look at other countries where police officers are not carrying guns and there's not fatalities like there are in the United States. But for us, we can mourn the loss of these police officers and also demand for justice in our communities, right? It's not mutually exclusive.
Right.
We don't want violence in our communities. We don't want people being killed at the hands of anybody with a gun.
Right.
But to say that we are against police officers is a very dangerous narrative.
Absolutely.
A very dangerous narrative that creates tension,
Yes.
that creates more violence. And so for us, we want to ensure that people know that we are not about, you know, any type of killings, but we want our police departments to be held accountable when we are seeing the Alton Sterlings being shot, right?
Yeah.
In our, like, how traumatizing
Oh,
is
absolutely.
that for all of us to watch over and over and over and sometimes lose hope, right?
Absolutely.
You feel like, you know, I talk about being in this field for 20 years, and last Wednesday, my colleagues and I felt depressed. We felt extremely sad. And so fortunately, you know, we have people that do care about us and volunteer. Justice League is a volunteer group, right? So all of us volunteer for Justice League. But there were healers, Reiki healers and yoga instructors that came. Lindsay, who you know, put it together for us after one of our Justice League meetings. And they came and they healed our hearts a little bit, right? So that we could then rejuvenate and continue. And so when I say, like, you don't have to be a protester, but if you have a gift, if there's something that you do and you do very well, share it with our communities because we need one another.
Right. So this is as simple as contacting you through your website.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's it's gatheringforjustice.org. GATHERINGFORJUSTICE.org. And also following us on Instagram and Twitter at NY Justice League. And so we get back to folks, but also too, we're hoping to direct people to the different, you know, policies. We always support a lot of the groups that are working on the ground with us on the policy initiative, so people understand how to, like, click away, right? So we'll post the petition online on Twitter, so people just got to open it, click, or call their elected officials. We provide the scripts for them, as well as, you know, we also send people, we post memes, you know, meet us for a unity march, and we're also going to be posting all the information on no equality, no economy.
Will it also be on this website how to contact different congressmen, how to actually get this implemented? Because I'm really, I'm not getting a clear answer from anyone. Like, where do we go to hold congressmen accountable for this, and how do we make a change?
And so, you know, and again, I think we have to be better at organizing all this information in one hub, because there are so many organizations doing wonderful things. They're working every single day, going to lobby in Albany, right? We marched, Justice League marched 250 miles to deliver 3 criminal justice reform bills, 9 days, long process, right? A year ago. And what we do see is, although these 3 pieces of legislation, 2 were introduced, 1 was reauthorized. Again, we need more people to understand the legislative process, right? And so we try to simplify it for folks by giving them, like, if you sign up on our website, you will be on our listserv, and we will then direct you each week to a different, or to the same bill, right? To also understand what's happening during the week. Is there a rally? Is there a vigil? Is there a march? Are there policies that we need to push? Are there legislators we need to call? Where do we go for this type of information? And so we do that if you sign up in our email, but we can't touch everybody all over the United States, right? So it's important that you have used your platform to have this conversation, right? It's important, and that's what I keep on saying is, like, there's things that everybody could do. So maybe you can't be out on the streets, but you're using this time right now to have a conversation, to give people information, to say, hey, we don't have all the answers. I'm in pain. I'm a human being. Again, we talk about, we don't want to see violence in our TVs, on the news. I don't want to turn to Facebook anymore in the morning, or Twitter, because I fear the fact that I'm gonna see another killing, right? But we have to do better in the sense of, how do we articulate these policies to a community that isn't in our field, that isn't in our line of work, right? How do we make it accessible and provide entry points for people to get involved? And so that's what we're trying to achieve with this noequalitynoeconomy.com. And we know some people are going to be like, oh, hell no, I live on McDonald's. And you know what? That's fine, but give it up for 7 days,
right?
And see what an impact it makes. Exactly.
Right.
We understand that a lot of these corporations are not giving, they're not even paying our people a living wage, right? So why would we continue to go to a place? And what we do say, go to your like local store, right? Invest back in Black and brown businesses, right? So you know that somebody has a business and you know, take that walk. If it's a little bit, if it's 2 blocks away than the convenience store that you're used to going, but you know that maybe you shouldn't be there because that's not contributing back to your community, go to the store that's Black owned. Right.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about these conversations? I know Snoop Dogg and The Game and everybody, they had a conversation with the LAPD. And do you feel like those conversations are effective?
Again, Snoop is using his platform.
Right, he's using it the best way he can.
Yes, and I think what I would also advise Snoop to do is to connect to the Black Lives Matter Los Angeles chapter, right? They're doing great work. They also know what's on the ground. So I also welcome, you know, artists that have that platform to connect with us that are doing the work. So that we could then work with you. You know, Yandy does that very well. Yandy contacts Tamika. She's like, oh my God, I can't bear it anymore. What are we gonna do? And then Tamika will say to Yandy, well, this is what you have. Why don't you use your platform to continue to support the work that we're doing? And so it's a mutual exchange. And so I do think that, you know, Snoop and The Game, speaking to the
problem,
I think that that's a great start, but also connect to the works that are already doing the work, so that we could then work together to hold, you know, the police officers accountable, our mayors accountable, because together we are stronger.
Do you worry that there's more talk than action and that might overshadow, you know, progress for us?
I don't. Again, I work for Harry Belafonte. His mentor was Paul Robeson, and he says, artists are the gatekeepers to truth. They are civilization's radical voice. And currently, Mr. Belafonte is mentoring people like Jesse Williams that gave a dynamic speech, right? And so because Mr. Belafonte also has one arm on the movement, right? He's still connected to young people, and we're advising him and also getting advice from him, right? Because we're saying, what do we do? And he'll sit there. We had a meeting with him yesterday. So like, I think there's a lane for all of us. And I don't think, but I do push individuals to do more, right?
Of course.
And always. And I think we can do more, but they're currently using their platform in a way that has made a whole community woke. Right? A lot of my folks don't know about the work that I do back in Southern California. They're proud of me, right?
But they don't know.
But a Jesse Williams, right, and a Carmelo Anthony has now talked to a population that may have not had any interest in it or didn't know, right? So I think it's a great opportunity to begin the conversation, but again, provide solutions. What are the next steps?
I think one of the next steps is this website that you're talking about, boycotting certain corporations that support prison systems. And I think that's so important for us. And one more time, what is the website?
It's noequalitynoeconomy.com.
Very easy. Okay. And then if people want to sign up and follow you and the Justice League, where do they go?
So they go to gatheringforjustice.org, Justice League. Twitter and Instagram is at NY Justice League, and my Instagram and Twitter is at MSLadyJustice1.
Carmen, I can't thank you enough for coming in here. Anytime you need to come through and talk that talk, you can always come here. It's so good to see you. I really appreciate you dedicating your life to this, dedicating your life to our communities to make it safer, for justice to happen, and you're needed and you're appreciated.
Thank you so much for having me.